Hey everybody, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit today about kind of old school bench training. This is, what a lot of the old timers used to do. And it's funny because, as I've said before, you used to see Louis Simmons talk about this. And a lot of it you can kind of look at old history, the way they benched, the reason these guys had big chests, how they still had big bench presses. And there's a lot of things that a lot of these guys used to do. And interestingly enough, a lot of it was focused upon really wide grip benching, right? And then doing a lot of shoulder work. So rather than using, the more closer grip benching, which can be a little more shoulder dominant, a lot of those guys did a lot of really wide grip benching. And then they would do a mix of flat incline and overhead press. So I'm going to talk about some of that, and then we'll discuss some of the other stuff that they, of course, did, just to balance things out. But when I'm talking the old school guys, I'm talking, back in the 50s and 60s. And interestingly enough, a lot of those guys had really big benches, right? They had really big benches. They had really big pecs. And they were good raw benchers, right? And it wasn't the modern style of power benching with a big arch or even the more moderate grips that were more tricep dominant. It was straight up, oftentimes flat back wide grip benching, or if it was any sort of partial like a floor press, like we saw Reg Park do a 500-pound floor press back in the day. In fact, I saw an old black and white video of a demonstration of 5 plates per side on a bar once years ago, and black and white recorded video, because black and white TV at the time, they didn't have color. And Reg Park did a 500-pound floor press. Well, I guess 495. Because I only saw the 5 plates. But you could see the 5 plates. Straight up floor pressed it, right? From a dead stop, not even trying to bounce floor press. Keep in mind, guys, this was like the late 60s. The guys were not as big. They weren't using as much stuff, didn't even have access to as much magical supplementation as they do today. The guy was putting up numbers like that. It was just ridiculous. So when you look at it, and I've heard Louis Simmons mention this, he called it old school bench training once in a seminar, where he had said, back in the day, a lot of guys would do an even mix, so whatever it happened to be for the week, if they were going to do whatever 9 sets of pressing, they would do a third of it is flat bench, a third of it is an incline bench, and a third of it is overhead pressing. Okay, so if you're going to do 9 sets of pressing, it would be 3 sets of each. And interestingly enough, why does that matter? Because they were all benching raw back in the day. So old school, you would be training for a raw bench. And a lot of the powerlifting info that we have all from the 80s, 90s, and was during the heavily equipped era. Now it's shifted back over towards raw, but a lot of the training methods have carried over from the equipped world, which will always be more tricep dominant benching, and oftentimes a more moderate grip. Okay, trying to seek those leverages and then to use more tricep. Not always, but some of them still did really wide. I've seen J.M. Blakely promote that. But back in the day, it was all raw. And usually, if you have weak delts, you stick right at that transition point. Because anyone who flat benches raw, if you're strong and you've ever recorded or you've looked at the research on it, this has been known for decades in the research, like studying the bar paths. The more elite you are, the closer to the chest that transition point happens, that J shape to where the bar drifts towards your face right off the chest, right? Very novice lifters, it doesn't do it till close to the lockout. Pretty advanced lifters, about midway, and really elite benchers. And I'll call elite benchers, guys benching 500 plus raw, like super elite. It tends to shift a few inches off the chest. Okay, very, very close to the chest. So when we start talking about sticking points, this is why we'll say, well, shoulders can affect near the chest. But that's only true if you're super strong. The less advanced you are, the more that transition happens. Because what happens when that bar shifts to that position, your delts kick in a lot. So if you're more advanced and you start sticking close to the chest, not right at the chest, because that would be your pecs, strong front delts make all the difference. Well, that's where the incline and the overhead press come in. And that's where there's this confusion a lot of times. A lot of people are like, overhead press doesn't carry over to bench. And it doesn't for more novice lifters. It really doesn't. A very, very advanced lifter, if that's where they're sticking, it can. The incline, though, absolutely does. So if we start talking really strong raw bench pressers, those front delts make a lot of difference. Okay, so the incline and the overhead press are predominant, some of the really the best front delt exercise you can do. So it'll help there. Okay, it'll help a lot. Same thing, extra shoulder work will help. Lateral raises, upright rows, all those things. Again, stabilizes that bench. Really can stabilize the eccentric. So you can control it where you want it. The wider grip, though, is really what gets you off the chest. And that's pecs. But, it's not going to be your weak point on the bench if you do all your benching with a really wide grip. So you see all my benching here these days is wide grip. So is my incline. I used to be a close grip bencher. Okay. So I've transitioned to this. I've noticed my chest has gotten better. I'm faster off the chest on the bench, so it's improved, and I'm going to continue to do that probably for years and see where it goes. But that really wide grip, that's how they benched back in the day because they wanted really thick pectorals. And the bench press is great for that. Anyone who says the bench is not a phenomenal chest builder probably close grips or bounces it off their chest. But if you're pretty flat back and you have a wide grip, you're going to build a massive chest from benching. Same thing with the incline. We think of the incline as just phenomenal chest exercise due to that stretch in the upper chest. But do it with a closer grip and then go really wide. And then tell me you don't feel more chest. That upper chest really lights up on a whole different level when you start getting real wide on it. Now, people say, well, it hurts my shoulders. Well, because you got to build it up. You have to build it up carefully. You can't ego lift. When you go to the real wide grip, that's where you got to stop the ego lifting. You can't bounce it off your chest. All right. So this is really the kind of the foundation. And then, of course, tricep work and upper back work and all that stuff matters. So I'm doing some triceps in there. Yes, it matters. Just not to the degree that the equipped world has told you to believe. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It absolutely does. But those pecs and front delts are always going to do the brunt of the work for a true raw bench, right? Always going to do the brunt of the work. So putting your focus there matters. I'm not saying you can't even do some extra chest work, some flies, pullovers, all that stuff. That can certainly help too, because again, the bigger chest helps you get it off the chest faster, particularly if you're benching wide grips. It's never a bad thing, of course, because mass does move mass. But yeah, so really kind of the foundations, though, of the older school approaches was really wide grip benching and then an even mix, flat, incline, and overhead press. Okay, that's kind of was the idea, and it worked. Guys had big benches and big chests back then. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.